there always seems to be a threat just on the horizon. And 2012 is no exception, with Massachusetts voters being asked to legalize doctor-prescribed suicide this coming November. Those of us who have been blessed with a good life and the ability to make a positive difference in this world must recognize preserving and defending life as our responsibility. As a Marine officer in Vietnam, I understood that, helping to preserve and protect the lives of the Marines entrusted to my command was largely my responsibility. And I tried to fulfill that responsibility to the best of my ability. Our guest speaker today knows well that responsibility and the importance of continuing to defend and fight for preserving that gift from God. He has, in fact, taken it to an entirely different level. Wayne, too, is a veteran of the Vietnam War, and on November 28, 1969, 20-year-old Wayne was wounded by a landmine while on river patrol in Quang Nam province. For months, it wasn't clear whether Wayne would live or die. When he finally stabilized, it took years of work for Wayne to return to a normal life. He had a total of 29 surgeries and spent more than 2 years in hospitals. Clearly, Wayne's story encompasses many issues, including pain. Wayne lost his legs to infection, not the internal blast. He suffered many other injuries, which can be described as massive wounds, causing massive pain, long-term pain, searing pain, day after day, week after week, month after month. But the biggest issue for Wayne was the fear and uncertainty about the future. Today, Wayne is increasingly concerned about health care for people with disabilities, and especially against a new threatening backdrop, assisted suicide. Please join with me in welcoming a true American hero and one who still fights on a daily basis to preserve and defend God's gift of life, Wayne Cockfield.
But I don't do a lot of singing because I am a card-carrying member of the League for the Singing Impaired. That's absolutely true. But, you know, what y'all are going to hear today is a bona fide South Carolina accent. My my family arrived in South Carolina in 1670, and we argue whether I'm a 12th or a 13th generation South Carolinian, so my accent is absolutely ingrained. There's nothing I can do about it, so I don't worry about it. But let me just say something. I like to be happy, joyful, and laugh, but we are in a serious and grave time in this nation. We are making decisions now that will profoundly and gravely impact our future. This is very serious. You know, what is being called for today with doctor-prescribed suicide is to once again withdraw constitutional protections and the rule and protection of law from a segment of American society. Now, when we talk about doctor-prescribed suicide or euthanasia in general, we're not talking about whether or not to start killing people. America made that decision in 1973 with the Roe versus Wade decision. Now, what we're talking about now is not whether or not to kill, but who's next. Who's the next group that will be led to the slaughter? Who's the next group that will have constitutional protections ripped from their grasp? Unlike Roe versus Wade, we still have a choice. We still have a fight to make. We still have a decision to make. I hope everybody in here will do what they can to stop the death with dignity law that is here in Massachusetts. And if it goes to a referendum, do not leave the referendum blank. Vote against doctor-prescribed suicide, because if we can still win this, because the other side has the money and millions of dollars, that doesn't mean we can't win. We can raise money too, maybe not as much, but truth is on our side. Now, the people I've talked to, let me just make one thing clear. Dying is not dignified. What we need for devalued people is living in dignity, not dying in dignity. Now, to a disabled person, doctor-prescribed suicide is directed toward disabled people, senior citizens, the chronically ill, and other medically vulnerable people. To disabled people, dignity, death with dignity is a slur, not something to look forward to. What's it saying? It's saying if you want or need death with dignity, you have no dignity. This is why it's a slur. The term itself means the person is not living with dignity, but they can get dignity. How do they get this dignity? They have to die to get this dignity. And they have to die in a sociably approved way. Now, legislators I've talked to since I've been here and other people, they say, well, shouldn't people have the right to suicide? Shouldn't that be their free choice? Isn't this nation about freedom? It's no accident the other side uses words like choice, freedom, when they're talking about killing people. I want to make something clear here. Physician-prescribed suicide is not about freedom. No legislature, no doctor, and I assume most people on the other side would not agree that a 20-something-year-old woman should be able to walk into a hospital and say, my husband threw me out the house, I want to die, starve me to death, or give me a cup of poison. Even the other side wouldn't agree with that. But let me tell you something. That's already happened. It's already happened. But there was a difference. It was a famous court case. Elizabeth Bouvet. She literally went into a hospital and said, my husband has thrown me out of the house. I want to die. Some people said that's a good idea. Some people said that's a bad idea, so it went to court. A psychiatrist testified that this was a perfectly rational viewpoint. The psychiatrist was Faye Gersh. People don't remember Faye Gersh. At the time, she was yet to be the head of the Hemlock Society, which is a pro-suicide organization. So she testified that Elizabeth Bouvet's desire to die was rational. Why? There's a little thing about Elizabeth. She had cerebral palsy. She was devalued. So see this, the point I'm making here, don't fall for the propaganda that this is freedom, a free choice. It's freedom. No. It's freedom directed to only a small group of Americans. Most Americans cannot have this freedom, nor do they want this freedom. Only a small group, the elderly, chronically ill, the disabled. It's not about freedom, it's about quality of life. What you have is people saying, these people, who would want to live like that? Oh my gosh, I couldn't stand it. I would rather be dead. Wouldn't they rather be dead? Let's help them. Let's have compassion. Let's put them out of their misery. Let me make a point about compassion. The Latin meaning of compassion is to suffer with. Medical abandonment is not compassion. We have people who are devalued, and we call it quality of life. This doctor-prescribed suicide is all about perceived quality of life. Now, I would characterize my quality of life as better than average. But half a doctor has a quality of life definition that says, you should be able to jog. You should go out every morning and jog for health. Jog around the block. That's his. He said, that's really necessary to a healthy, happy life. I can't do that. Why is that important? If I'm unconscious, if I'm in a hospital, or I go to a doctor and ask for doctor-prescribed suicide, he'll say, of course. Oh, who would want to live like you? Your quality of life is terrible. Of course, take this poison. Let me help you. Quality of life is not a medical decision. I want everybody to understand that. A quality of life is not a medical decision. Suicide is not a freedom. It's a sentence. Death is not a right. It's a fate. If physician-assisted suicide is available in Massachusetts, in Oregon, physician-assisted suicide, doctor-prescribed suicide is already legal. Studies show the number one reason given for desiring the poison drugs is not pain. You'll hear that argued, how someone's in terrible pain. Terrible pain can be treated. And by the way, because you're in terrible pain doesn't mean you want to die. What you want is to get out of the pain. Death is not an appropriate pain medicine. But in Oregon, the number one reason is I don't want to be a burden. What's a burden? Let me tell you, here's the danger of physician-prescribed suicide. In South Carolina, Someone I know was asked to be a witness. A woman was shot, totally random, walking down the street in a drive-by shooting. She wasn't even the target. A bullet ricocheted, missed, whatever, hit her. She was paralyzed. The doctor got my friend to come into the room as a witness. He told that lady who was had assisted breathing. So let me tell you something. You're in terrible shape. You're paralyzed, and this is hours after she was shot. You're in terrible shape. You're paralyzed. Your life will be hell. You'll never be able to do anything. You'll never be happy. Your family can't afford this. Sure, they have insurance. The insurance will run out. Then your family will lose their house. They'll lose their cars. They'll lose everything. How are they going to take care of you? Your husband will probably have to quit his job. You'll be on welfare. Don't you think you should express your love to your family by asking for this breathing assistance to stop? Let me ask you a question. Did that woman freely choose to die, which she did, to save her children? This is where doctor-prescribed suicide goes. It does not go. It's not a freedom. It's not a free choice. It is the final solution for disposable people. We live in a society where everything is disposable. We throw away plastic. We throw away cups. We throw away our husbands sometimes. We throw away our wives. We've been throwing away our children. Now we're going to throw away the elderly, the sick. This is what doctor-prescribed suicide is going to do. Now, I live in the bullseye of euthanasia. I have a personal interest in this. If we don't win, I don't expect to die of old age. I say this all the time, and I'm absolutely serious. I will never die of old age. If God allows me to live continuing in good health, the day will come, something will happen, I'm going to be in a hospital or in a medical setting, and I'm going to have mercy imposed on me. I'm going to have a freedom imposed on me that is not available to most people in this hall. But it will be available to you one day. See, I use disability to kind of take in a lot of people. My mother lived long enough where she was disabled. She died at the age of 92. If everybody, even the young people in this audience, live long enough, you will be disabled, and disabled by age. Now, when I was a young guy, teenager, I saw an extremely disabled man, and back in those days, in the 60s, we didn't have the accessibility law that allows me to travel the country. We didn't have curb cuts and ramps and accessible bathrooms. So you didn't see disabled people like you do now going down the street. I was shocked, absolutely shocked, when I saw this man. My grandmother was blind, but she could walk. I never seen anything like this. And I looked at that man and I said, I would rather be dead than like him. But you know what? The irony of it is, I am now like him. So, the interesting part is, even though I was only 15 when I saw that guy, God kept that memory sharp in my mind. Because, see, I understand how people think. People fear disability. Let me make a point. I fear disability. It's not unusual to fear disability. I've had people laugh when I said that, because they look at me and say, why should you fear disability? You're already disabled. But let me tell you, I'm getting ready, leaving this afternoon right after this meeting here. And I'm driving, Lord willing, back to South Carolina, where people talk normal. And I could get in a wreck, couldn't I? And and I could be paralyzed from the neck down, couldn't I? You don't think the thought of that would scare me? Of course it does. Who wants to be paralyzed from the neck down? But guess what? I know people paralyzed from the neck down. I don't know if y'all know Johnny Erickson Tata. She's fairly well known. I've met her more than once. I've been together with her. We've talked. She's a very happy person. She would not have chosen her paralysis. I would not have chosen this wheelchair. It's okay to say, I don't want to be like that. It gets very dangerous when you turn that around and say, he should not be like that. That's what physician-prescribed suicide does. Now, doctors are healers. That's why the Massachusetts Health Doctor Association, I'm not sure what it's called, is on record against physician-prescribed suicide. They don't want to be forced into killing people. The National Institute of Health, I've actually got the guy's name somewhere amongst my paraphernalia. I just wonder, do we have to worry about doctors? National Institute for Health. Disability groups are up in arms after a scholar from the National Institute of Health said Americans would benefit from aborting the blind and disabled. That's right in Washington. Do we have to worry about some doctors? Yes. And let me tell you, if this nation would benefit by aborting before birth the blind and the disabled, I assume this man's opinion would be this nation would benefit by prescribing suicide to the blind and the disabled. That's what I'm saying. This is serious. I've had people say, this isn't going to happen. People aren't going to die. Let me tell you, people are dying right now. Euthanasia is already practiced. It's behind the scenes. Physician-prescribed suicide is going to bring it into the open. Why is that bad? People get used to killing. Now, as a combat veteran, I can tell you, war is brutal, but you know what? To survive in war, you have to get used to killing. And that's the truth. And any veteran in here knows it's the truth. And the trouble with getting used to killing is it, in a way, gives you a certain callousness. Well, I had that callousness when I got back from Vietnam. And I was very tired of a culture of death. And I was very tired of living in a culture where death was an everyday happening. So when I get back to America, and I actually was wounded in 1969. I got out of the hospital in 1972, right before Roe versus Wade. And the fight was already going on. And I heard people saying, we need to kill babies. And I'm saying, wait a minute. It wasn't a year ago people were screaming baby killers at Vietnam veterans, which, by the way, was not true. I know people who died to keep from hurting civilians. But the point is this. All of a sudden, the deaths of babies became a social good. The forces on the other side are doing their best now to make the death of the elderly and medically vulnerable a social good. And once this nation gets used to killing the worst of the disabled, the most disabled, the oldest of the elderly, the pool of death is going to expand. It always expands. In Oregon, where physician-prescribed suicide, as I said, is already legal, studies have been done. In 1 year, 26% of the people requesting suicide were depressed. How many of them were offered mental health therapy? Not one. They were all given suicide drugs. So here's the situation. If anyone in the audience out here is depressed, and you got with me, and we went to a hospital in Oregon, and if we don't win soon, right here in Massachusetts, you, who would be young, one of our singers, she would come over here and we'll go to the hospital. We'd both say, you know, we're terribly depressed. Our lives are hard. We want suicide. We need suicide. The singer would most probably guess suicide prevention counseling. If I lived in Oregon, or we lived in Massachusetts, you know what I'd get? Suicide assistance counseling. Is this the kind of world, nation, state that we want to live in? Things are happening in this country that is serious, and if you're devalued like me, it's scary. I wrote an article for National Right to Life News called Living in the Bullseye of Euthanasia. I wrote another article for National Right to Life News. I think the heading was, is the VA losing its way? That's the Veterans Administration Hospital. Because see, they were giving out what was called the death book to disabled and wounded veterans that actually pushed these veterans toward the refusal of life-saving medical treatment. Another thing I want to speak, where are the women's groups? Shouldn't they be all against physician-prescribed suicide? In Oregon, a study was done of the victims of the Oregon suicide law. 2/3 were women. 2/3. Why is that? You know, I'm not sure if you want to know the truth, but I'm telling you, women they sacrifice for their family. That's just the way women seem to be. You know, if my mother burned a piece of toast, she would eat it and fix us another one. That's, you know, think of the woman I just told you about in Columbia. She sacrificed. The sad part is she didn't have to sacrifice. Now, I have right here, this is a copy I made of the South Carolina Medical Journal. And the name of this issue is Special Issue, Ethical Issues in Assisted Dying. Let me tell you, if a physician, if a doctor gives poison to his patient, he's not assisting that patient in dying. He's killing that patient. And as far as I'm concerned, he'll stand before God accused of murder. But this issue has an interesting quote in an article from a South Carolina doctor. He said, the most rational choice for lethal drugs is from who? The disabled. They make the most rational choice. Do we see who physician prescribed suicide is aimed at? I'm here to beg you to take this serious. I want everyone in this hall to speak to everybody. Hound people till they hate to even see you coming down the street. The only way Massachusetts can win this is for the people to understand, the citizens who are not activists and people really, you know, involved like the people in this audience, but they have to understand this is not freedom. It's not a free choice. It's directed to a small segment. Let me tell you what to tell them. Ask them, if this is a freedom, why is 90% of the people of Massachusetts excluded from this freedom? Let me say something else. If this doctor prescribed suicide passes, they say, well, it's going to be voluntary. No, it's not. I've already said it's not voluntary. If you're depressed, it's not voluntary. If you're described as a burden, it's not voluntary. If you have terrible pain and refuse pain medicine like has already happened in Oregon, it's not voluntary. But if it passes, we're going to be in a nightmare in this country, an absolute nightmare. Now, every right to die case that has got us to this point has involved disabled people. Every single one of them. We have to stop it, and we need to stop it right here in Massachusetts. We are literally looking at two futures. We have a future where the medically vulnerable, our aged population, our disabled people are cared for and given help when they need it, real help. And a price is not put on their lives. Because you know, when you put a price on life, the price goes down. But we can have a future where people are held and given value. Or we can have a future that is predatory, where those that don't measure up are done away with. And as I said, every single person here, the day's going to come when everyone in here, from the youngest baby that's here, doesn't measure up in some way. What future are we going to choose? This is very serious. This is critical. I am asking for you to help Massachusetts Citizens for Life and fight for the right to life for all people from birth to natural death, and let people live with dignity, not die with indignity. Thank you.